thing you've been putting off? Maybe you say, someday I'll do that, or when I have more time. Whether the item is a big bucket list item or something smaller like going on a hike, now is the time to start your Say Yes list. And we have the perfect process to help you turn these items into reality. Join thousands of others with our free Say Yes list template at thesayyesexperience.com/list. It'll help you stop living in that someday and start making those list items come true today. So download it now at thesayyesexperience.com/list. Welcome to the Say Yes Experience podcast, where we inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and into possibilities. Our mission at the Say Yes Experience is to empower 10 million people to say yes. If you're new here, welcome. We're thrilled you're here. I'm Jessica Rector. I co-founded the Say Yes Experience with my then 9-year-old son Blaze, based off his idea to let's just say yes to things. I'm one of the top experts on burnout, and companies and conferences hire me to present on mental health, wellness, and burnout prevention. As a #1 best-selling author of 11 books, keynote speaker, and a burnout specialist, I've seen so much with our clients. The Say Yes Experience was started to help you really start living, to do the things that light you up, have more fun, and turn your dreams, or what we call Say Yes list items, into reality. So thank you for investing in yourself and being here. Now let's make it happen. Fear is our greatest crippler. It can also be the opportunity for freedom. After sustaining a life-threatening injury, our guest could have given in to fear and never do that thing she loved again. But instead, she faced fear and found a new world of possibilities. You can use her same tactics to overcome any fear in your own life. And please help me welcome Meggie Houle. Woo! Thanks, Meggie. We appreciate you being here today. So I want you to share, you have such a fascinating Say Yes journey and story. I want you to share what led up to you saying yes. Give us a little bit of background on that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So it started about 5 years ago, and that was in 2017. And I had been paragliding for about a year. And I was a newbie, and if anyone knew about paragliding, it's kind of a foil, and then you fly, and you can go distance with it. You can actually fly for hours if you want to, but it's not a hard structure, so it's very flexible. And I have been practicing for a year, but I was still quite a newbie. And that fall, after that year, the fall of 2017, I was paragliding in France, but on my own, because I just love to travel on my own and do that kind of stuff. And I just had spent a whole day without eating, taking care of my body, and I was just a bit in a rush to wanting to paraglide. It was just an amazing day for paragliding, and I flew for 2 hours, and I did a wrong maneuver, and I crashed a paraglider, and I fell to the ground. On my feet, but it broke a vertebrae. I broke my back, ended up in a spinal fusion, and I got taken to the hospital, and I spent 3 weeks in the hospispital. And I remember.
So, Maggie, about how far down did you fall from where you were to the ground? You said you landed on your feet, but how far was that?
It was about 30 feet. So it's like a 3rd-story floor.
Wow, yeah. That's a long way to fall.
Yeah, and it's amazing because some people, they've fallen that far and haven't got a scratch, and some people have got much serious injury. Some people die from that fall. So it's like whatever you get from this kind of fall. And after that, I remember being in a hospital, and this nurse come to me, this young nurse, and I had my paraglider folded in a corner while I was in the hospital, and that nurse come to me and she's like, "Oh, I bet you're never going to want to do that again. Like, you're done. Like, you survived. It's a good thing." And I was like, I don't think I'm done. Because I'm like, what if I spend the rest of my life looking at the sky and wondering if I was going to have the courage to do this again after like such a traumatic event. And that's the start.
Wow. Okay. So take us back. So you really did this 2-hour paragliding. Like, I'm thinking just, 10, 15 minutes 2 hours. How do you stay up for 2 hours paragliding?
The most I've stayed is 5 hours when I was in India.
That's a
And
long time.
yeah, there are two ways to do that. Is if you're over a ridge, there's just laminar wind that is there's just a constant flow, and if the wind is strong enough and then the right strength, it's like a constant flow that keep you up. You know, sometimes when you see birds on cliffs that they just soar and it because it's safe and fun, it's kind of the same idea. And then the other way is to find thermals, which is just hot air rising up from the ground. And when you catch those, they kind of like come in a tunnel up the way to the clouds or even above. And then if you get them, what they do, they're strong enough to bring the paraglider up. So if you turn your paraglider and it go in circle really tight, you can stay in the core of the thermal and it will bring you up. And the highest I've been is 14,000 feet. So it's amazing what can happen.
That is incredible. So before your fall, did you realize that you've been doing it for 2 hours at that point? Did you realize you'd been gliding for that long?
Yes. Yeah. It's a sport. We call it a sport, but you're not really running or doing anything. But we like to look at our data. Like it's kind of a paragliding. We have our phone in our device, and we look at how long you've been flying and then what route you're taking. So we have that.
So you have that with you. So you knew that. And how were you feeling right before your fall? Did you feel like you were going to fall? Were you starting to feel woozy or uneasy? Did you know something was wrong?
Yeah. So in that instance, I had already flown an hour. And I decided to go back up because everyone else was still flying. There's a part of me that was like, knew that I didn't have the mental capacity at that moment. But also there was this other part of me, which is like, but everyone is still flying. I want the kind of the FOMO. This is not a sport that you can do under FOMO because they constantly be higher. So I went again and I flew for another hour. And just before the fall, it was actually a moment where I was so hungry that I was like, I need to stop. I need to go land. And I knew like my energy level was low and I was stressed because it was windy and all those elements were not playing in my favor. And I could have taken another path that would have not led me to that because there was another landing field further that was safer. But I just wanted to land. You can land where you take off. If you go above and you could go land back there instead of landing further away. So I decided to do that. But then because I was stressed, because I wasn't going down, I was still going up. And so I just did something, a bad maneuver in a way that just the right amount of wind and the right amount of pressure on my brakes that made it stall, which has any airplane has the capacity to stall. But normal airplane recover.
Oh, wow. And so you knew all these things were off. Did you know immediately or even before you landed, did you realize, okay, something's off, I'm going to get hurt? Like, how was your mind in that moment knowing something's off? And then did you, okay, well, I'm going to put my feet down because then I'm going to get less hurt? Or what was kind of going through your brain in order to really protect yourself at that moment?
There was just no time. It was the blink of an eye. As I was one moment I was up here and the next moment I was on my side. And it was kind of interesting to be in that position because there's a part of me that like was aware that I was on the ground and I was making noises and I was like, oh, those noises are coming from me of just the hurt of my body. And then I'm on the side and I see everyone start running towards me. And then we're in France, so it's a really busy place. There's like 30 people surrounding me, everyone just watching me. Like I think I still have the visual of all this group of people around me just watching me on the ground. And I'm just in pain, but I don't know what's going on. And there was no time for me to prepare for that. And then in just a blink of an eye, it's done.
Did you realize you were as hurt as much as you were, or as badly injured as much as you were?
No. And I think I'm very lucky because I didn't even break a foot or a leg. I don't understand how that happened. It's amazing. But I was just on my, it was just amazing. The thing is, I was just having a lot of pain in my back and I was keep trying to tell people, oh, maybe I need to move this side or this side. And if anyone has ever broken a bone, like it's really painful. And I couldn't even imagine. There's a part of me that was like, I don't understand how I'm not even losing consciousness with this amount of pain.
Oh, wow. Or like, thankfully you weren't paralyzed, because landing on your feet could also break a vertebrae in your back and paralyze you as well, I'm sure. So
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about, so you had all these people surrounding you. They rushed you to the hospital. And then what was kind of going through your head, especially when the nurse is like, I guess you're not going to ever want to do that again?
You mean after that, when I was in the hospital and then there and wanted to do paragliding?
Yeah, like when they're sitting there telling you, like, this is how hurt you are, this is what happened, what was going through your head, especially with, you know, your paraglider in the corner, you know, that you can literally see it.
I think whoever has ever broken back would know that you don't really have time to think. It's just the pain. But there was just this part of me that was wondering, there's no way that you can blame yourself. Like there's a part of you that feel very guilty of like hurting yourself that way because you didn't pay attention to your body. And that actually followed me for many years after. I was just having a lot of shame from the experience. I actually spent those 3 weeks in the hospital not really communicating with anyone because I just didn't want people to know. I didn't want people to know that I failed, that I crashed. I felt like a bit that wasn't worthy because I failed paragliding, which is kind of a silly thing now. But this is where I was in that moment, because I was also going through a lot of PTSD from the event. I had difficulty to sleep and the pain in the back, and I had some spinal cord injury. So I had, my pelvis was paralyzed at that moment. So I had all that to deal with. So there was just the thing that was kind of helping me hang on is that I want to get better so I can try again just to face that fear.
Now, that may sound kind of what to people listening, like, what, you want to get better just so you can get out and do the thing that injured you in the first place. So what was the thinking behind that, as opposed to, I just want to get better so the pain stops, so I can get back to like normal activity, so I can get out of the hospital, so I can get back to my everyday life? And you were like, I just want to get better so I can go back to paragliding, which is what hurt me in the first place. So what was your reasoning behind that? Why was that your motivation?
Because it's something to look up for. I think it's something tangible as well. So sometimes if you just think about getting better, when you don't really have a goal, is you end up not really knowing, what is it going better? Can you really ever get rid of pain? Or do we know? We have learned how to deal with that over the years, but it's like, it's a kind of goal that can bring you down a spiral if you don't choose something that can actually be realistic. But to have something that's possible, that you can do, and that will give you the feedback that, you know, you've progressed on your journey, is much more rewarding. And it's actually something you can start imagining doing, or you can get closer by doing tiny steps. And that is a huge part, I think, of my healing, is either people that I've met that have overcome some of those struggle I was with, that I could hang on that and believe, okay, it's possible. So I can keep working and get to that point, or having a goal like that's tangible, like that, a dream, because otherwise it's a long recovery.
Why was that, as opposed to another goal? Why was it paragliding the goal, as opposed to, I want to get better to get back to work, or to feel productive, or to be able to, you know, really be healthy, to spend time with friends or family? Why did you pick that as your goal, though?
For me, paragliding was just feeding a lot of my needs, in the sense of the community side of it. And I think without it, I didn't really have a community. All my community was there. And that's where I connected with people. So that part of not paragliding was also painful, because then I felt even more lonely. And the few people that I told about it at the beginning were people that also were paragliding, because they were like, they understood it. They went, and then it took me 4 years before I told my family, because I was really stressed that they will not want to don't want me to
Yeah.
paraglide and that kind of stuff. And then other people will just think that, people that haven't paraglide will say, "Are you crazy?" and going back paragliding, and they would be fearful every time I go paragliding. So it's really the sense of community that wanted me to go back in there, and it's beautiful, the sceneries that I can see with that.
Do you want to start saying yes, but you just don't know where to start? And oftentimes when we don't know where to start, we just don't start. So we created an ebook just for you. We put together 101 ways to say yes. In this ebook, ideas big and small, things that only take a small amount of time, like 1 to 2 minutes. Whether you're saying yes to yourself, in your family, relationships, or pushing yourself lovingly outside of your comfort zone with adventures, it's all made to really help you become more of your rock star self. So you can get this ebook at thesayyesexperience.com/book, BOOK. So if you want to start saying yes, or maybe you need some ideas on how to say yes because you get so caught up in being busy and doing tasks and projects or doing laundry and cooking that the time flies by and you want to spend time with your family, but you just don't know how to say yes. Those ideas just don't come to you. We put it together to make it super, super easy for you. So go to thesayyesexperience.com/book to get your copy today and start saying yes now. Are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or burned out? We get it. You're not alone. In fact, according to our research, 79% of the workforce is in burnout and almost half are in extreme burnout. In fact, it's the number one reason why people are leaving organizations. They're burned out. They're looking for something more. They're looking for something better. But it doesn't have to be that way. We have your solution. It's called Blaze Your Brain to Extinguish Burnout. 52 keys to prevent, breakthrough, and eliminate burnout. You can find your copy at jessicarector.com/store. Now, this is a great tool that you can use with yourself, with your colleagues, within your organization. Everyone can get one, and you can go through one a week with them. And at the end, you can say, what was something that worked this week? What was a success you had? So you can champion and encourage each other. You can also ask what were the challenges and issues that came up, so you can mastermind and brainstorm around those to keep those from coming up in the future. So make sure you get your copy at jessicarector.com/store. All books are autographed with a personal message just for you.
And you are also sharing it with people who, are your community, but who get it, who understand, who could, even if they've never been injured, it may have come across their mind a little bit more. And also they love it like you do. So when you shared the idea of, hey, I want to get back to paragliding, they would be like, yes, I get it. Like I would feel the same way if I was in that situation, as opposed to someone who says, are you crazy? Why would you want to do that? Right? You want to be surrounded, especially in that state when you're injured and you're hurt and you're going through this healing process, right? Not just your body, but also your mind, your emotions, like going through that process. You want to be surrounded with people who get it, who understand, so you don't feel so alone and isolated from that. So it's important to have that community as well, because they help you in the healing process, right?
Yeah, because sometimes when it's hard, then I think having people around, it's so important, because then sometimes it's hard, and doing that alone, then you feel there's no purpose for you to keep fighting it. If I think the dark days or the times that you just want to give up trying to get better.
So how did you work through like PTSD, not just the physical ailments, but that part of it? How were you able to work through that?
Yeah, that's it took a while. And I didn't have at that time any tools or people to really reach out to for that. And I was still I didn't know I was in shock. And I had seen a bunch of doctors and no one had asked me how I was doing mentally. And so I didn't even realize how much in shock I was, not even knowing I needed help. And so at the beginning, I was just not sleeping much, crying a lot. And that lasted for a while. And it kind of like started to move away the more when I actually started paragliding again. I know it's kind of contradictory, but it just, when you start doing something, you see that you're not going to die and you can actually be okay. You kind of recreate that sense of safety. So it actually started diminishing. And then also 2 years after, I went and learned to do hypnotherapy, and that was also a big part of really removing whatever was left, because there was still a part of me that was holding on to a bit of the guilt and the shame around it, which was feeding the PTSD.
So thank you so much for being brave and courageous and sharing this, especially around the guilt and the shame, because there's people out there who are living with guilt and shame in some capacity and don't know how to work through that, don't know how to get through that. And it's part of the process, right? Also talking about it, taking the stigma away from it. And that happens the more we talk about it, the more that we just share our story, because then people say, oh, they get it. I'm not the only one. And that's what we want so much in life, is just to know that someone somewhere gets it. They understand that we're just like somebody else. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that shame and guilt that you've had in the process, that you've really used to work through that. And it's allowed you to like really dive deep back into paragliding. Now, you had mentioned earlier about the nurse saying, oh, I bet you're never going to want to paraglide again. And what did you say, and how did you respond to her when she said that?
I told her, I'm like, I'm not gonna get rid of it. What are you saying? And her face astonishment was kind of priceless, because she was a young woman as well, and she was like she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe I will do something that crazy that could do the same damage or worse, because they are there, so they see all that I'm going through.
So what did it take you to actually start paragliding again? So you knew in your head, okay, I'm not getting rid of it because I'm going to want to do that at some point. What did it take you, like mentally and emotionally? I mean, obviously your body had to heal, but once your body healed, what did it take you to actually say yes to get back up on the paraglider?
So at the beginning, I didn't even open the paraglider. I was playing like the strong big girl. I'm like, I'm gonna do it again. But I couldn't open it. I was so scared of it. Even touching the bag, it was kind of triggering something in my body, the fear. And so I had kind of decided that I needed to take action and have kind of a plan to know that I was going to do it and when. And it's about 3 months after that one of my friends was going to California, and I'm like, I'm going to go with you so I can bring my paraglider and not do this alone. And so we went to California, and he was flying, and I just couldn't bring myself to actually open the paraglider. And one day after he came back from flying, I'm like, okay, I can't do it on my own. I was still shaking even 3 months after from having the paraglider in my hands. And so I'm like, can you just stand beside me? Because somehow thinking that this paraglider was going to eat me out or something, but I just couldn't control it. And so he stand beside me while I was just opening it up, attaching it to my body. And then that's all I did. And I thought maybe I was going to paraglide that day, that trip, but I actually ended up feeling too overwhelmed by the emotions and the fear, and I didn't know how to cope with them. And, it was pretty amazing that I already opened this paraglider, and I was feeling okay that this is the first step, and I'm closer to the goal than I was before.
So how long was that where you opened it and just attached it to your body? How long was that after the accident?
3 months.
3 months. So in 3 months, you went from a major injury to thinking, I may paraglide. And although you didn't do it, that is a huge step. And thankfully you didn't do it, because you could have gotten hurt worse if were not in the right mental state of mind to get up there. And then if, something happened and you did a wrong maneuver, it could have done a lot worse damage. So thankfully you did not get up there. So you had to attach to your body. How did you feel with it being attached to your body? And then how were you able to eventually get back up?
So if anyone has done kite surfing, it's a bit similar too, is it has a lot of power once you pull, when there's wind and once it's over you. So you feel it in your body, the strength of the paraglider. So I did that there, and I was still shaking and kind of just playing with having it around me. And every time there was kind of too much of a wind, I was like, okay, I just I don't need to do it. I mean,
Exactly.
I have no, at this point, I had no one else to prove. And I used to be kind of wanting to do the competition and being really good at it. But at that point, I didn't have that anymore. I didn't have that ego. I'm like, I just want to feel good. And I started getting more compassion for myself.
Oh, that's lovely. And I think that's so important, right? Having compassion for ourselves, giving us the space and the grace to work through whatever we need to work through to get to where we need to be, as opposed to pushing and rushing the process. And so when were you able to get back up, and how did that first flight of getting back up feel?
It took another about 2 months before I decided to go on another trip in Oregon. That time I had a friend that was there, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming. And that felt really good because I'm like, well, there are sand dunes by the ocean. And if I do my first flight on the sand dune, if I fall, I'd be falling on the sand. So it felt a bit more cushy. And somehow my brain just thought it was a better idea. But it really did what it was, because then I show up there and I think the same happened. I'm like, can you stand beside me while I open the paraglider? Couldn't shake it off yet. And I had him just kind of like be around and just actually put his attention on me while I was actually taking my first flight. And actually, I just did I'm going to start small. I'm going to go like 2 feet high.
Yes.
The little thing. And then that first moment that I did that, and my feet left the ground, and then I'm like, I'm okay. There was this amazing feeling that I'm okay. I'm not gosh.
Like this sense of peace, maybe almost like, okay. And that's important, like to start small. You don't have to start way up here, like to start small, build your confidence back up, right? And then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. So you feel completely confident knowing, okay, I'm not going to crash. I got this. I can do it.
Yeah. And then the first time you do this and you have this confidence, then you're like, then I can try a little higher. And a little longer. And then it becomes that you have this confidence. I can actually do it. Like I fell once, I screw up once, but there's so many other times I didn't screw up. And it was kind of regaining that confidence back, and that trust in my own abilities, that, you know what, I know I'm capable of doing this. I've proven it. And one failure doesn't, even though it was pretty traumatic, it doesn't mean that's gonna happen again, as long as I make sure to make myself safe again. And what do I need? Maybe practice more and starting again from a beginner level.
And so what did you learn from the first one when you fell, or the time that you fell? What did you learn from that you took with you on that next big flight? Because you do small, you build your confidence, but you had to have learned something from that fall to give you even more confidence, saying, okay, well, I learned from this one, so I'm going to make sure I don't do that again, whether it's making sure that you get a good meal before you go out, or making sure that you're not overwhelmed. What was it that you learned?
That was a big part of it. Like you're saying, the meal, that's something I stop just guessing. I'm always making sure I have plenty of water and food. And if I don't have food, like actually there are times that I learn how to say no to flying, even though I have this desire, sometimes being around people, and also people are like, why are you not flying? Come on and fly. There's kind of this camaraderie. But then it's to learning not to actually stay centered to me and coming back to me and being more embodied, to know, okay, wait a minute. I need to go through my body. Am I okay? Like the weather could be the most amazing day, but am I okay to do that right now? And that's been leading me in all areas of my life now, that I actually do that constant checkup. Am I okay to do this? And if I'm not sure, then I just wait. Even with paragliding, if I'm not sure if I'm okay to fly, then I wait. Because if I'm good to fly, then I'll be good to fly in 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think so often we don't check in with ourselves. Am I okay? Or how am I feeling? How am I doing? But I love how you said, I check in with myself now. And if I'm not okay, first of all, you're giving yourself permission to check in with yourself, right? And you're stopping and pausing. But if you say, I'm not okay, then it's okay that I don't fly. Like, it's okay that I'm not doing it with everybody else, or like keeping up what we like. So much of our brains like, oh, I got to keep up with what everybody else is doing. I got to, buy the bigger cars or the bigger house, or I got to go out and do this because everybody else is doing this. And that FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Like, you've come to peace with all that, but you also came to peace with yourself. So I love that. And so what do you want to share with people about them really quickly, like saying yes in their life and not letting fear, because it would have been easy to let that fear hold you back, right? You got injured. I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to do that again, but really powering through that fear.
So fear, we don't get rid of fear. Fear will happen in life, and we have to learn to accept it. And we get better at managing the fear. And that's just where we have to focus on, because then otherwise we get afraid of being fearful. And that's what would have stopped me from paragliding. If I was afraid of flying, I would not have gone, because of course there are times I was afraid afterwards.
Yes.
But when we know that, if I have, and not thinking about it, accepting that fear is just part of life, and that we have the tools at the moment that those things happen, we handle it every single time.
Yes. And not letting that fear hold us back, but finding a way to work through that. So thank you so much for sharing your story and being so brave and courageous today and sharing more about your journey, Meggie. We really appreciate it. So when you're going out there, don't let fear stop you. Find a way to power through that. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with a great community that gets it, they understand, and that you get the support you need, whatever you're going through. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Are you ready to move to your next level of rockstar greatness? CFO, Chief Fun Officer, #1 best-selling author, and keynote speaker Blaze Rector is ready to help you do that. At just 10 years old, he's already written 2 #1 best-selling books. Through the power of storytelling, he uses lessons learned and shares strategies, tips, tactics, and tools to inspire, empower, and motivate you to live a more amazing life. So if you're ready to do that in your own life, grab a copy of his #1 best-selling books at jessicarector.com/store. And when you order your copies, he will personally autograph them and write you a message on those books before shipping them out to you to really inspire and empower you in your life. These books are great for adults and kids alike. So if you're ready to move to your next level of rockstar greatness, make sure you grab your copy at jessicarector.com/store. Enjoy those amazing, empowering, transformational books. Did you know that the 2 biggest issues impacting the workforce are mental health and burnout? Well, we have your solution. The more that you feel burned out, the more it impacts your mental health. The more your mental health is impacted, the more it leads to burnout. So it's a vicious cycle that goes around and around, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can help them both if you're intentional and strategic with it. We have lots of resources for you at jessicarector.com/store. One that I want to highlight that really enhances your mental health is Tame Your Brain Game, 52 tips to turn negative thoughts into positive action. Now, research shows that 80% of your thoughts are negative. No matter how positive you feel, it's the pattern and the habit that you've developed over the course of years, over the course of decades. And that can often impact your life, how you show up, how you lead, how you communicate, how you engage, whether at work or at home. And then it also impacts a work environment. All you need is one NN or TT, negative Nancy or toxic Tim, to really impact that work environment. So if you are ready to enhance your mental health, get your copy of Tame Your Brain Game 52 tips to turn negative thoughts into positive action today at jessicarector.com/store. All books are autographed with a personal message just for you. Thank you so much for being here. Check us out at thesayyesexperience.com. Our mission at the Say Yes Experience is to empower 10 million people to say yes. With your help in sharing our podcast, we can do that. Follow us on all social media at the Say Yes Experience and join our free community at facebook.com/groups/the Say Yes Experience. Thank you again to our guest. You can find all the contact information for our guest in the show notes. Thank you to our CFO, Chief Fun Officer, Blaze Rector, our business advisor, Lisa Bahurik, and to our team at Jessica Rector Enterprises. We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Have an amazing day and keep being a rock star.